The morning sun was rising over the small village where Ravi lived with his family. His father was a farmer, a man with rough hands and a kind heart. Their house was small, made of bricks that had begun to show cracks from years of rain and heat. But inside the house, there was warmth, love, and hope. Ravi, though poor, carried big dreams in his heart. He wanted to study well, get good marks, and one day lift his family out of the endless cycle of poverty. Every day, Ravi woke up before dawn. He would help his father carry water from the well, feed the buffaloes, and then quickly get ready for school. His father always reminded him, "Beta, we may not have money, but we have honesty. Study hard and you will create a life better than mine." These words stayed with Ravi like a shield against the harshness of the world. The school he attended was not an ordinary village school. His father had taken loans and borrowed money just so Ravi could study in the best private school in the nearby town. Most children there came from wealthy families, children of businessmen, politicians, and landlords. Their shoes were polished, their bags were branded, and their lunchboxes were filled with food Ravi had never tasted. In comparison, Ravi's bag was old, his shoes had worn out soles, and his uniform had been stitched many times by his mother. But Ravi never cared much about appearances. He believed that his knowledge and his hard work were his real wealth. Still, not everyone saw him that way. Many of the students often teased him for being the son of a farmer. They mocked his accent, laughed at his faded clothes, and sometimes ignored him altogether. Ravi bore all of this quietly. He did not want to trouble his father with his worries because he knew how much sacrifice his father had made to put him in that school. One Monday morning, Ravi walked into the school with his books neatly tied with a thread. He had no fancy bag, but his eyes were full of determination. The day started like any other, but he could sense something unusual in the air. Some students were whispering about a meeting in the principal's office. When Ravi's name was called through the microphone, his heart began to beat faster. He wondered if he had done something wrong. He had never missed homework, never disobeyed teachers, and never misbehaved. Slowly, with nervous steps, he entered the principal's office. The room was decorated with large chairs, trophies, and photographs with famous people. Behind the desk sat the principal, his face serious and his glasses shining in the light. Ravi greeted him respectfully and stood silently, waiting for instructions. The principal looked at him and said, "Ravi, we have received complaints from some parents. They feel that you do not belong to this school. Your father has not been able to clear the extra charges, and we cannot allow students who fail to maintain the school's standard." Ravi felt as though the ground had slipped beneath his feet. His lips trembled as he tried to speak. "Sir, I always study hard. I never disturb anyone. Please give me a chance. I promise I will do even better." But the principal did not soften. He shook his head and said coldly, "This school has a reputation to maintain. Education here is not only about marks. It is also about class, culture, and status. You may be a good boy, but this school is not for you. I am sorry, but you are expelled with immediate effect." The words struck Ravi's heart like a hammer. His throat tightened, but he tried hard not to cry. He looked at the ground, clutching his books tightly, and quietly stepped out of the office. Outside, some students were already watching, curious about what had happened. Ravi walked past them, his eyes burning but his face calm. He would not give them the satisfaction of seeing his tears. As he walked through the school gate for the last time, memories flooded his mind: how he had topped in science last year, how his teacher had once praised him for his honesty, how he had stayed back after school to help clean the classroom when others had run away. None of that seemed to matter now. All the hard work, all the dreams, all the sacrifices of his father, everything felt like it had been pushed aside just because they were poor. On the way home, Ravi's steps were heavy. The streets that usually felt lively now seemed empty. He thought of his father working under the hot sun, bending his back to grow crops, and his mother sewing old clothes late at night so her son could look presentable at school. How could he tell them he had been thrown out? He imagined the worry on his father's face and the disappointment in his mother's eyes. When he finally reached home, his mother opened the door and smiled at him. "You came early today, Ravi. Are you all right?" she asked. Her smile was gentle, unaware of the storm inside him. Ravi could no longer hold back his tears. He broke down and hugged her tightly, crying into her lap. His mother grew worried and called his father from the fields. Within minutes, his father arrived, wiping sweat from his forehead, concern etched on his face. Ravi told them everything: the meeting, the harsh words of the principal, the humiliation of being told he did not belong. His father listened silently, his jaw tight, his hands clenching into fists. But he did not show anger. Instead, he placed a hand on Ravi's shoulder and said, "My son, do not cry. Let them say what they want. A school does not decide your future. Your hard work and your honesty will decide it. They may throw you out of their gates, but no one can throw knowledge out of your mind." Ravi looked up at his father, tears still rolling down his cheeks. "But Baba, what will happen now? I wanted to study, to make you proud. I don't want to stop learning." His father smiled, though his eyes were moist. "And you will not stop. We will find a way. If no school will take you, then I will sit with you in the evenings and we will study together. You are my son, Ravi, and you will rise higher than anyone expects." In that moment, Ravi felt a flicker of hope returning. The pain of humiliation was still there, but his father's words gave him strength. He realized that though the world could be cruel, his family's love was stronger than any insult. He promised himself that he would not give up, no matter how difficult the road ahead. That night, as the small oil lamp burned in their modest home, Ravi sat with his books open. His father sat beside him, guiding him with whatever knowledge he had. Outside, the village was quiet, but inside that little house, a storm of determination was rising. Ravi knew he had been expelled, but he also knew one thing for sure: this was not the end of his journey, it was only the beginning. The night after Ravi's expulsion was heavy with silence. The oil lamp flickered in their small home, and the sound of crickets filled the air. Ravi sat quietly in a corner, his books lying untouched on the floor. His heart still carried the sting of rejection, and no matter how hard he tried, the words of the principal echoed again and again in his ears. "You do not belong to this school." They were simple words, but for Ravi, they cut deeper than any wound. His father, though tired from the day's work in the fields, noticed the sadness on his son's face. He sat beside him and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "My son, don't let this break you. Remember, schools and principals can take away admission, but they cannot take away your courage or your dreams." Ravi looked at his father's rough hands that had carried plows, lifted sacks of grain, and endured countless blisters. Those hands told a story of struggle and survival. If his father could fight life every day without losing hope, then maybe he too could carry on. But still, Ravi's mind was restless. He asked softly, "Baba, why do people see money as more important than hard work? Why was I thrown out just because we are poor?" His father sighed, staring at the dark sky outside. "This world has strange rules, Ravi. Many judge a man not by his honesty or his talent, but by the clothes he wears, the money in his pocket, and the car he drives. But always remember, this money can make noise, but knowledge creates respect. And respect lasts longer than wealth." These words sank deep into Ravi's heart. He wiped his tears, nodded, and picked up his books again. That night, he studied quietly by the dim light, promising himself he would not let poverty decide his future. The next morning, the sun rose bright, and the village woke up to the sound of roosters crowing and farmers leading their cattle to the fields. Ravi's father was already preparing his tools, ready to spend another long day in the fields. Before leaving, he looked at Ravi and said, "Work hard, my son. One day, the same people who pushed you out will bow before your knowledge." Ravi nodded, though his heart still carried scars from yesterday. At home, Ravi continued his studies. His mother, though busy with household chores, often sat with him, encouraging him with stories of great men who rose from nothing. She told him about inventors, leaders, and poets who were once mocked or ignored but later respected by the world. Each story gave Ravi strength, and little by little, he began to believe that maybe his struggle had a purpose. Later that week, Ravi went to the small government library in the nearby town. The building was old, its paint fading, but for Ravi, it was a treasure house. Books lined the dusty shelves, waiting to be opened. He spent hours there, losing himself in pages filled with stories, science, and history. The librarian, an elderly man with glasses, noticed the boy's dedication. One day he asked, "Son, why do you sit here for so long?" Ravi told him the truth that he had been expelled from school but wanted to continue learning. The librarian's eyes softened with kindness. "Then these books are your new teachers. Come here whenever you like. Knowledge belongs to everyone." From then on, the library became Ravi's second home. He copied notes, read chapters, and solved problems late into the evening. Though he no longer had the school's classrooms or the company of classmates, he had found a new way to keep his dream alive. Yet, deep inside, Ravi could not forget the humiliation. When he walked past his old school, he could hear laughter inside the classrooms. Sometimes he saw his former classmates running around the playground in their shiny uniforms, unaware of the boy who now stood outside the gate with longing in his eyes. Some even mocked him, whispering, "That's the farmer's son who got expelled." Their words pierced his heart, but he refused to reply. He simply walked away with his books pressed tightly against his chest. At night, when he lay down on the thin mattress in their small home, Ravi often wondered what the future held for him. He dreamed of becoming someone respected, someone who would never again be looked down upon because of poverty. He wanted to prove to the world that a farmer's son could achieve greatness if given a chance. One evening, after returning from the fields, his father brought home a small packet of sweets. Ravi was surprised. "Baba, what's the occasion?" His father smiled, handing him the packet. "Today I sold a part of our harvest. The money isn't much, but it's enough to buy a second-hand set of reference books for you. I saw them at the town market." Ravi's eyes filled with tears. He knew how hard his father worked for every coin, and yet he had chosen to spend it on his son's education. With trembling hands, Ravi accepted the books. They weren't new, their pages were slightly yellow, but for him, they were more valuable than gold. "Thank you, Baba. I promise I will not let your sacrifice go in vain." The days rolled by. Life remained hard, but Ravi grew stronger inside. He studied whenever he could, helped his father in the fields, and learned the meaning of discipline and patience. He realized that though he had been expelled, the world was still an open classroom, and every struggle was a lesson. Unknown to Ravi, his story had quietly reached others. A kind teacher from his old school, who had always admired his honesty and intelligence, spoke about him in front of people in the town. She told them how unfairly he had been treated and how talented he was. Slowly, whispers about Ravi's expulsion began to spread beyond the walls of the school. Ravi did not know it then, but fate was already writing a new chapter for him, one that would turn his humiliation into honor, and his sorrow into an unexpected opportunity. For now, he remained unaware of what tomorrow would bring. He only knew one thing for certain: no matter how dark the road seemed, he would not stop walking. That night, as he lay down under the open sky, staring at the stars, Ravi whispered to himself, "One day, they will see. One day, they will know the value of a farmer's son." With that quiet promise, he closed his eyes, unaware that the universe was already preparing to answer his words in a way he could never have imagined. The sun rose bright the next morning, spreading golden light over the school buildings and the nearby fields. It seemed like an ordinary day for everyone, but fate had already planned something extraordinary. Inside the school, students were preparing for their classes, teachers were busy with their registers, and the principal sat in his office sipping tea, unaware that within a few hours, his world was about to change. The playground outside was full of noise as children laughed and played. Suddenly, a strange sound filled the air. It was not the sound of birds, nor the sound of tractors in the distance. It was a loud whirring, something the students had never heard before. Slowly, the sound grew stronger, vibrating through the ground, and everyone looked up at the sky in confusion. There, cutting across the blue sky, was a helicopter. Its shiny body glittered in the sunlight, and the blades moved so fast that the air itself seemed to shake. The children pointed their fingers and shouted in excitement. "Look! A helicopter! It's coming here!" Teachers stepped outside, shielding their eyes from the sun, their faces filled with disbelief. Helicopters were rarely seen in the village, and no one had ever imagined one would land right on their school grounds. The principal rushed out too, straightening his coat nervously. He had never received such an important visitor. Within moments, the helicopter hovered over the playground and gently touched down, blowing dust and dry leaves in every direction. Students held onto their books tightly as the wind scattered their papers. A silence fell over the schoolyard, mixed with awe and curiosity. When the blade slowed, the door of the helicopter opened, and a tall man in a crisp suit stepped out. His shoes shone, his watch sparkled, and his very presence demanded respect. People recognized him at once. He was Mr. Arjun Malhotra, one of the richest businessmen in the country, a man whose name appeared daily in newspapers and television. Some children whispered in excitement, "That's the billionaire. Why is he here?" Teachers exchanged surprised glances. The principal's hands began to sweat, though he tried to hide it with a forced smile. Mr. Malhotra walked confidently across the ground, surrounded by his security team, but his eyes were calm and searching. He stopped in the middle of the playground and asked in a steady voice, "Where is Ravi?" The crowd went silent. Everyone looked at each other, confused. The name rang familiar. It was the same boy who had been expelled just yesterday. Some students gasped, some whispered, and the teachers exchanged uneasy glances. The principal's smile faded. He stammered, "Ravi? Why do you ask about him?" Mr. Malhotra turned his sharp eyes toward the principal. "I was told a boy named Ravi studied here. A farmer's son. Bright, honest, hard-working. Where is he?" The principal swallowed hard. He hesitated, unsure of what to say. At last, with a weak voice, he admitted, "Sir, that boy was expelled. Just yesterday." Gasps filled the air. Students began to whisper loudly. Expelled. And now this billionaire had come looking for the same boy. The principal shifted nervously, feeling the weight of everyone's eyes on him. Mr. Malhotra's expression hardened. He stepped closer to the principal and asked coldly, "Expelled? For what crime? Did he cheat in exams? Did he misbehave? Did he insult his teachers?" The principal stuttered, "No, sir. But his father could not pay the extra fees. And, well, he did not match the school's standards." There was a long silence. Mr. Malhotra looked straight into the principal's eyes. His voice, though calm, carried immense power. "I see. So you decided that a boy's future should be thrown away because his father is poor? You measured his worth not by his knowledge or his character, but by the money in his pocket." The teachers stood frozen, the students wide-eyed. No one had ever dared to question the principal like this before. The principal, his face red with embarrassment, tried to defend himself. "Sir, we have a reputation to maintain." "Parents expect," but before he could finish, Mr. Malhotra raised his hand sharply. "Reputation is not built by insulting the poor. It is built by nurturing talent, by lifting those who deserve a chance. Do you know why I came here today? Because I was once Ravi. Years ago, I too was a poor farmer's son who studied in this very school. And like him, I was told that I did not belong here." The crowd gasped again. Even the principal froze in disbelief. Mr. Malhotra continued, his voice strong and filled with emotion. "I walked these same halls with torn shoes and faded clothes. I sat on these benches, mocked by rich children, ignored by teachers who only cared about money. And one day, I too was expelled. They told me I would never succeed. But I did not give up. I worked hard, I studied wherever I could, and today I stand before you as a man who owns companies across the world. And yet, even with all this wealth, I have never forgotten that humiliation. I promised myself that one day, I would come back and make sure no child suffers the way I did." By now, the entire schoolyard was silent. Even the wind seemed to pause. Ravi's classmates, who once mocked him, hung their heads in shame. The teachers who had ignored him avoided eye contact. And the principal, sweating heavily, could only bow his head. Mr. Malhotra turned to the students. "Remember this well, children. A person's value is not measured by the clothes he wears or the money his parents have. True value lies in honesty, knowledge, and hard work. One day, it will not matter how rich your family is. What will matter is what you have made of yourself." The words struck deeply into every heart present. Many students who had once laughed at Ravi now felt guilt, realizing their mistake. The teachers too felt uneasy, knowing they had failed to protect a bright boy from injustice. Then Mr. Malhotra announced something that stunned everyone. "I have come here with a purpose. I am starting a new scholarship program for poor but talented children across the country. And the first child I want to support is Ravi. Wherever he is, I will personally make sure he studies in the best institutions, even abroad, if he wishes. Money, books, resources, everything he needs will be given to him." The crowd broke into murmurs. Students looked at each other with wide eyes. A billionaire had come in a helicopter just to look for Ravi, the very boy they had dismissed as worthless. The principal, desperate to save his face, quickly said, "Sir, perhaps we can call him back. I will admit him again. It was a misunderstanding." But Mr. Malhotra cut him off sharply. "No. You had your chance. You did not just expel a boy, you insulted every child who dares to dream despite being poor. Ravi does not need your school anymore. The world will be his classroom now." With that, Mr. Malhotra turned back toward his helicopter, leaving the entire school shaken. The sound of the blades began to roar again, lifting dust and paper into the air. As the helicopter rose, the students and teachers watched in silence, their hearts filled with shame, awe, and wonder. And somewhere, not far away in his small home, Ravi was still bent over his books, unaware of the storm of change that had begun in his name. His life was about to transform in ways he could never imagine. When the helicopter left the school, the entire playground remained silent for a long time. The students whispered among themselves, the teachers stood awkwardly, and the principal locked himself in his office, ashamed of what had just happened. A billionaire had arrived asking for a boy they had thrown out only a day earlier. The same boy whom everyone ignored had suddenly become the center of attention, though he himself was not even there to see it. Meanwhile, Ravi sat at home, unaware of all the noise his name had created. He was sitting on the floor with his books spread out before him. His mother was cooking in the small kitchen, and his father had just returned from the fields, tired but smiling. For Ravi, it was just another day of study and hard work. But fate was already knocking on his door. That evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned orange, the sound of vehicles filled the quiet lane of the village. Cars stopped near Ravi's home, and soon after, the whirring of the helicopter was heard again. People from the village rushed out of their houses to see what was happening. They gathered in groups, whispering in surprise. "Who has come in such a grand way?" someone asked. "Why would such an important man come to our small village?" another wondered. Ravi too stepped outside, curious about the noise. His heart skipped a beat when he saw the same helicopter he had noticed once before flying over the fields. Now, it was landing right outside his home. Dust rose into the air, trees swayed, and children ran barefoot to watch the sight. Ravi's father looked at him in confusion. "What is happening here, Beta?" he asked. When the helicopter door opened, the same man in the elegant suit stepped out. Mr. Arjun Malhotra walked toward Ravi's small home, smiling warmly as he saw the boy standing at the doorway with wide eyes. His parents stood frozen, unsure of how to react. The billionaire extended his hand to Ravi and said, "So you are Ravi, the boy I have been looking for." Ravi's lips parted, but no words came out. He had seen this man's face in newspapers, in posters, and once on television in a shop window, but never in his dreams did he imagine such a person would come searching for him. His father quickly joined his palms together respectfully. "Sir, please, come inside. Our home is small, but you are welcome." Inside, the room was simple. A cot in one corner, a few utensils, and stacks of Ravi's books neatly arranged on the shelf. Mr. Malhotra looked around, his eyes soft. He sat down on the floor beside Ravi, not caring about his suit or his status, and began to speak. "Ravi, I came to your school today. I heard what happened. And it reminded me of my own past. Do you know why?" Ravi shook his head silently. Mr. Malhotra smiled gently and began to tell his story. "Many years ago, I was like you. My father too was a farmer. I studied in the same school where you studied. I wore torn shoes, I carried old books, and I too faced humiliation. Children mocked me, teachers ignored me, and one day, the principal expelled me. He said I did not belong there because I was poor. The pain I felt that day stayed in my heart for years. But I refused to give up. I studied wherever I could under street lamps, in libraries, with borrowed books. I worked small jobs, saved money, and kept learning. Slowly, life began to change. I started a small business, then worked day and night to grow it. Today, I may be called a billionaire, but I am still the same farmer's son. And when I heard about you, Ravi, I saw myself once again." Ravi listened with wide eyes. His heart filled with admiration. He realized that the man before him was not just wealthy, but also someone who had lived through the same struggles he was facing now. Mr. Malhotra continued, his voice steady. "You were thrown out of school yesterday, but remember, this being expelled does not mean you are worthless. It means the school failed you, not the other way around. Talent and honesty will always find a way to shine. That is why I have come here. I want to help you, Ravi. I want to make sure you never again feel helpless because of money." Tears welled up in Ravi's mother's eyes. She covered her face with her dupatta, unable to believe that such a great man was sitting in their small house, speaking such kind words to her son. His father's eyes glistened too, but he held his head high with pride. He looked at Mr. Malhotra and said softly, "Sir, we are simple people. We cannot offer you anything in return. But if you are truly here to help my son, then may God bless you forever." Mr. Malhotra smiled. "I need nothing in return. What I do today is for my younger self, the boy who once cried just like Ravi. And more than that, I do it for the future, for every child who dreams despite poverty. Ravi will be the first student in my new scholarship program. I will take care of his education fully. Not just here, but in the best schools and colleges. He will study abroad if he wishes. Every book, every pen, every opportunity he needs will be given to him. Ravi could not hold back his tears anymore. He folded his hands and said in a trembling voice, "Sir, why me? There are so many children like me. Why did you choose me?" Mr. Malhotra placed a hand on his shoulder. "Because you did not give up. I heard from one of your teachers that even after being insulted, you continued to study with full effort. That courage is rare. It is easy to stop when life becomes difficult, but you chose to keep going. That tells me you deserve this chance." Outside, villagers had gathered in large numbers, peeking through the open door and windows. They were astonished to see a billionaire sitting humbly in the house of a poor farmer. They whispered to each other, "Look at Ravi's fortune. Yesterday he was thrown out, and today he is being lifted higher than anyone could imagine." As the evening light faded, Mr. Malhotra stood up and said, "Ravi, tomorrow you will come with me to the city. We will begin your new journey. Are you ready?" Ravi looked at his parents. His father nodded proudly, and his mother wiped her tears, smiling through them. With a trembling but determined voice, Ravi replied, "Yes, sir. I am ready." That night, the little home glowed with a strange new light. Hope filled every corner. Ravi sat with his parents, his books open before him, but his heart beating with excitement. He could hardly believe what had happened. Just a day ago, he felt worthless, rejected, and broken. But now, he was about to step into a future brighter than he had ever dreamed. His father looked at him and said, "See, my son, I told you. No one can throw knowledge out of your mind. Today, the world itself has come to recognize your worth. Never forget where you came from, and never let pride blind you." Ravi nodded firmly. He knew he would carry his father's words like a guiding light, no matter how far he went. As he lay down to sleep under the same roof that had sheltered him all his life, Ravi whispered to himself, "Tomorrow will be different. Tomorrow my journey will truly begin." And with a heart full of gratitude and hope, he closed his eyes, unaware of the many wonders yet to come. The next morning came with a sense of excitement that Ravi had never felt before. The rising sun poured golden light over the small village, and birds sang loudly as if celebrating his new beginning. The villagers had gathered outside his house even before dawn, eager to witness the moment when the farmer's son would leave in a billionaire's helicopter. Some stood with admiration, some with curiosity, and a few with envy, but all of them knew they were witnessing history in their quiet little village. Ravi's father helped him pack his few belongings into a small bag. There wasn't much to carry: some clothes, his old notebooks, and the second-hand books his father had bought for him with so much love. His mother tied a protective thread around his wrist and whispered blessings, her eyes moist but filled with pride. She reminded him, "No matter where you go, always remember who you are and where you came from. Respect people, value knowledge, and keep your heart humble." Ravi hugged her tightly, promising that he would never forget. When the sound of the helicopter echoed again across the fields, the children of the village ran to the rooftops to watch. Dust swirled as the powerful machine landed once more near their home. Mr. Malhotra stepped out with his calm smile, greeting Ravi and his family warmly. He shook hands with Ravi's father and said, "You have raised a fine son. The world will one day know his name." Ravi's father folded his hands in gratitude. "Sir, my son is yours now. Guide him like your own. I have given him the strength of honesty and hard work, but the rest is in your hands." With tears in his eyes, Ravi touched his parents' feet before stepping toward the helicopter. The villagers clapped, some even cheering his name. For the first time, Ravi did not feel ashamed of his poverty. Instead, he felt proud that he was leaving as a farmer's son with big dreams, not as someone who had been rejected by a school. As the helicopter lifted into the sky, Ravi looked down at the fields, the mud houses, and the familiar lanes of his village. His heart ached with love, but it also leaped with excitement. He whispered to himself, "One day, I will return here, not as a boy who was expelled, but as someone who makes my parents and my village proud." The journey to the city was like stepping into another world. Tall buildings touched the sky, cars rushed across wide roads, and people hurried with purpose. Ravi's eyes widened at every sight. Everything looked new, but instead of feeling small, he felt motivated. He knew he was stepping into a bigger stage where his determination would be tested even more. Mr. Malhotra took him to a large, modern school in the city. The classrooms had smart boards, the library had thousands of books, and the playground was bigger than the entire land of Ravi's farm. At first, Ravi felt nervous. Would the city children mock him too? Would he again feel like an outsider? But this time, things were different. Mr. Malhotra himself stood before the school assembly and introduced Ravi. He told the students, "This boy is not just another student. He is a symbol of courage and determination. Respect him, learn from him, because he has faced challenges many of you cannot imagine." Hearing those words, Ravi's fear melted. For the first time in his life, he was not seen as the farmer's son but as a boy worthy of respect. The students welcomed him, curious about his story, and some even offered to help him adjust. Slowly, he began to feel at home. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Ravi worked harder than ever before. He would wake up early, revise his lessons, and spend hours in the library. Teachers admired his sincerity, and soon he became one of the top students in the class. Whenever he felt tired, he remembered his father sweating in the fields and his mother sewing clothes late into the night. Their sacrifices fueled his determination. Mr. Malhotra often visited him, guiding him like a mentor. He reminded Ravi, "Success is not just about earning money. It is about using knowledge to create change, to make life better for others." Those words shaped Ravi's character deeply. He realized that his journey was not only for himself but also for every child who felt powerless because of poverty. Years passed quickly. Ravi completed his schooling with excellent marks. Then, with Mr. Malhotra's support, he went abroad for higher studies. Life in a foreign country was challenging. The language, the culture, the fast pace, it was all new. But Ravi carried his father's wisdom and his mother's blessings like a shield. He worked part-time jobs to learn responsibility and stayed awake late into the night to complete assignments. Every struggle only made him stronger. After years of dedication, Ravi graduated with top honors. His name was spoken with respect not just in his university but also in professional circles. He began working in research and later started his own company that focused on technology for farmers. His goal was clear: to use modern knowledge to solve the age-old problems of agriculture. He wanted to make farming easier, more profitable, and more respected. With time, his company grew. Investors trusted him, governments praised him, and farmers across the country benefited from his inventions. He became known not only as a successful businessman but also as a son of the soil who never forgot his roots. Newspapers carried his story, television channels invited him for interviews, and everywhere he went, people admired his humility. One day, years later, Ravi returned to his old school. But this time, he was not the boy carrying torn books. He arrived in a car, dressed with dignity, and walked in with confidence. Students looked at him with admiration, teachers stood in respect, and the principal, now much older, bowed his head in shame. Ravi did not come to seek revenge. Instead, he spoke kindly to the students. He told them, "Never judge anyone by their clothes or their background. Greatness can come from the most unexpected places. Respect everyone, because you never know who might change the world tomorrow." His words touched every heart, just as Mr. Malhotra's had once touched his. That day, Ravi closed the circle of his journey. He had once been expelled from this very place, but now he returned as proof that dreams cannot be destroyed by poverty or pride. When he visited his village again, he was welcomed like a hero. Children ran behind his car, villagers garlanded him, and his parents stood with tears of joy. His father's eyes shone with pride as he said, "My son, you have done what I could only dream of. You have shown the world that a farmer's son can fly higher than the sky." Ravi bowed before his parents and said, "It was your sacrifice that gave me wings. Whatever I am today, I am because of you." And so, the boy who was once expelled became a man who inspired millions. His story spread across the nation, reminding people that education, courage, and honesty are greater than wealth. He continued to help children from poor families, building schools, libraries, and scholarships in villages. His mission was clear: to make sure no child would ever face what he had once faced. From that day onward, whenever people saw a helicopter flying over the village, they remembered the day a billionaire came searching for a poor farmer's son. But now, they also remembered the boy who grew into a man of honor and success, carrying with him the lesson that dreams, when fueled with courage, can rise above all obstacles.